This is wrong. This is not a democracy. This is what a dictatorship and oligarchy, this is what that form of government, that's what we expect. But not here in the state of Tennessee, not in the United States of America.
Article 2, Section 27 of the state constitution says that lawmakers have a right to protest against and dissent from any legislation that is injurious to the people and have their protest marked in the Journal of the House. That's what we were doing.
They're going with the NRA and the Tennessee Firearms Association instead of listening to the people of Tennessee. They're allowing children to die while doing nothing.
Tennessee state legislators Justin Pearson, Justin Jones, and Gloria Johnson responding to the extraordinary move by Tennessee Republicans to expel them for protesting against their own state's inaction on gun violence. The three have already been stripped of all their committee assignments, and their ID badges, get this, have been deactivated. They no longer work to open the doors to their offices in the building. The resolutions to expel the members alleges that the three had participated in, quote, disorderly behavior. The Speaker of the House likened the protest to a, quote, insurrection.
Wow.
One of the members facing expulsion pointed out this, quote, we had a child molester on the floor for years. They helped him get reelected and did nothing to expel him. We've had members pee in each other's chairs. We've had members illegally prescribe drugs to their cousin mistress, and nothing happened. But talk on the floor without permission, and you will get expelled. That vote is set for tomorrow. Joining us right now, one of the three Tennessee House Democrats being targeted for expulsion by Republicans. State Representative Gloria Johnson, our friend Eddie Glaude, the chair of the Department of African American Studies at Princeton University, joins us as well. Representative Johnson, I want to go back in time, but let me start with right now. Tell me what the situation is that you face today and what you expect tomorrow.
You know, well, it's hard to know what to expect. This is unprecedented. And so, and interestingly enough, I just got a visit from HR where they told me that if we are expelled, I will lose my health insurance. But if I were to resign, I would not lose my health insurance. So, you know,
unelected
this is what we plan to do is show up, and we are happy to speak to this issue and talk about what happened
in America.
And we want a hearing in front of the people. We want folks to be able to see. We're not going to make any deals. We want to plead our case in front of the people, and that's what we plan to do. Because we spoke up for victims of gun violence. I am a teacher. I taught for 27 years. I taught at Central High School in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2008 when we had a shooting at our school. It was a breakfast in the cafeteria. I was down in my classroom that morning. My classroom was disconnected from the main part of the school. I look up and I see kids running down the hall, heading toward my classroom, screaming, crying. I had no idea what's happening. And when they finally get in the room, it was several minutes before they could even articulate what had happened and what they had seen. The trauma, the fear of those students, I will never, ever forget. And I will always make sure that I speak up for victims of gun violence and for gun sense legislation. And we were not given a voice on the House floor to speak up that day.
I'm so sorry that you are yourself.
They're coming for everyone that does speak up.
Of the country's epidemic of gun violence. And as a first-hand witness of how this canon does impact our youngest and most precious,
or Republicans will end you.
That they haven't turned to you, especially in the wake of the tragic shooting last week.
Extortion.
Can we go back to the shooting, and can you take me inside what has happened in the state where the protests, when they started, when your support of the protesters put you at odds with Republicans in the chamber?
Sure, yeah. That morning I got there early because I knew that there were going to be protesters there. I wanted to speak to them. I wanted to know them to know that they were seen and that there were people in that room that cared about, what was happening and cared about the safety of their kids. I talked to so many mothers who were crying. They had just dropped their children off at school, and they were nervous about dropping their kids off at school, hoping that they would be safe when they returned to pick them up that afternoon. but they were saying that they had, every time you hear about this, you have a fear, but when it happens
Republican
in your community,
Americans don't give
that
a
fear
fuck.
is even greater. That is my child going to be safe
They
today?
can't be bothered.
And we are
It's
the
too
only
much.
nation in the world that has this type of gun violence, and there are things that we can do. They talk about they want to harden up our schools and put more security. We need to keep our schools safe, but if we're smart, we're going to prevent the guns from ever getting to the schoolhouse door.
Gotta
We don't
talk.
want gun battles at the schoolhouse door. We want to make sure that those weapons do not get to the door of our children's schools.
Representative Justin Pearson has also joined our conversation. I want to bring you in 1 second. I just want to ask you one more question, Representative Johnson. What caused the break with Republicans? It would seem that a tragedy in which 3 9-year-old children in your state are murdered in a mass shooting at an elementary school might, I don't know, maybe I'm, too delusional for the times in which we live, might create or generate a moment of unity. Was it because
Finality.
the parents that were scared and protesting and demanding gun safety legislation were not welcomed by what caused the rupture that led to this
Owning the
unbelievably
libs
fast escalation
cult.
where tomorrow you and 2 of your other colleagues may be expelled from the body? How does that happen?
Well, because we have a body that has taken away our voice. They have lessened the ability to debate on the floor. And we usually have something called welcoming and honoring in the morning. And we wanted to welcome and honor those folks, those victims coming in. Because as the Democrats walked through the protesters, we talked to them, we listened to them. But as my colleagues across the aisle walked by, they didn't even make eye contact with those moms and toddlers and teenagers. And so our inability to be allowed to recognize them, to lift their voices on the House floor was incredibly frustrating. And Justin Pearson, he can talk a little bit more to how he was shut down in addition, but then we had bills where they didn't call on our members, quickly called the question, and we weren't allowed to have that discussion, debate, or even mention those protesters.
Nope.
And we
No
decided
talking.
we need to make sure that between bills, we walk to that podium.
Republicans
and
will
let
not
them know we saw
dialogue
them, we heard
about
them,
anything.
we are with them on their issue, and we want to bring guns into
We
legislation.
must
Representative
keep
Johnson, you said HR told you
talking.
today that if you resign, you keep your health care. If you are expelled, you lose it. Do you have any plans to resign?
No.
I have no plans to resign. If they want to bring that resolution to the floor, I am ready to fight in full view of the state of Tennessee and all of my constituents.
Amen.
Representative Pearson, thank you so much for joining us today. I want you to take me through how this escalated so quickly, in your view, that you and
Petulance.
2 of your other colleagues face expulsion from the chamber for standing with your constituents, for standing with the majority of Americans who would like to see something done on the topic of gun safety legislation.
Thousands of people came to the Capitol, mostly children and teenagers, who were asking for the representatives in the State House to do something. They came to the Capitol for us to do something, to pass gun sense legislation, to stop the epidemic of gun violence that took the lives of 6 people in Nashville and in my community of Memphis and Shelby County, a beautiful place. We are still dealing with an increase of murders by 44%. We're still dealing with people breaking into cars to steal guns because we passed a permitless carry law here in the state of Tennessee. Because we went to the House floor to speak up and to hear the voices of our constituents and community who said, we need justice and we need action. The Republican Party has said, you need to be expelled. Not because we committed a crime, unlike the last 2 folks who got expelled, who committed 22 offenses of sexual assault, and the other who committed bribery. People who committed criminal acts were expelled from the House. But because we go from House to court, we went to the House floor using our First Amendment rights so that we can listen to the First Amendment rights of children and teenagers and mothers who are grieving. We're told that we're being expelled. It is the language. It is the language of people in positions of power in the Republican Party, like Speaker Sexton, that is leading to this escalation. He called children who held signs saying, am I next? He held signs saying, "I'm 9 years old," just like 3 of the victims at the Covenant School in Nashville. He called them insurrectionists. He called grieving mothers insurrectionists. And that type of language, that is what continues to fuel a really unfair and unjust fire that doesn't focus on the issue of ending gun violence, but promotes division, and it promotes extreme measures and appalling measures like the expulsion of democratically elected members who represent over 200,000 people in this state.
Eddie, 2 weeks before the mass shooting that took the lives of 3 9-year-olds as well as 3 adults, 6 people were murdered that day. A poll in Tennessee revealed that 70% of the citizens of Tennessee would like to see background checks on all gun sales in the state. 63% would like red flag laws there to temporarily remove guns. About 54% would like to see the age increase to 21. And a slim minority of just 35% would like to see all teachers carrying guns for the kinds of shootouts
no
that
books,
Representative
but
Johnson
guns.
warned about. We have this conversation a lot of days about Republicans leaning into authoritarian and anti-democratic tactics. I don't think you see it this starkly, where 3 representatives who are standing up for the 70, 63, and 53% of their constituents face expulsion for doing so. What do you think the stakes are tomorrow in Tennessee, Eddie, for the country?
Well, I think, it's a part that stands in for the whole. And there are components here. First, we hear a description from Representative Johnson of a process, the distorted nature of the deliberative process within the House of Representatives, that the minority party can engage in actual debate around issues and policies and bills that affect their constituencies. That's shut down. So it opens up space where they have to engage in kind of insurgent activity, kind of disruptive activity in order to have their voices heard. And then you have, on the basis of breaking rules of decorum, you're going to disenfranchise people in District 90, people in District 52, District 86, 200,000 plus folks. You're going to disenfranchise them because you really don't care about democracy. But it says to me that what they're doing in this moment is turning a blind eye to the reality that those 9-year-olds were murdered because of their policies, were slaughtered because of their policies. And it seems to me, Nicole, that it represents the kind of devolution of our democratic process, but it also necessitates that we act in this bold kind of way. We cannot cower in the face of it all. We have to fight it as aggressively as we can.
Hallelujah, Eddie, I love it.
The representatives for doing what they do.
I just don't have the strength.
And to continue to fight.
Representative Pearson, do the Republicans have a policy proposal that you can debate with them to advance the beliefs of 70% of the voters in the state that background check legislation or red flag laws are needed?
The Republicans have not proposed any such legislation. The legislation that we have seen this session in particular is all about how we protect the Second Amendment more. Even today, there was a proposal to make sure that we can arm teachers. The conversations now about schools isn't about how we can prevent guns from getting to them or prevent people who shouldn't have them having them. The conversation is how do we make sure that the schools all have security resource officers? How do we make sure, even as one person in leadership of the Republican Party said, I'll put a tank in front of every school. But the reality is about the gun violence epidemic in our country that we have to realize that a lot of communities, particularly Black communities and poor communities, are suffering from is not only in schools, it's in your neighborhood. It is something that we are experiencing every single day. I had my own classmate this year who was killed by gun violence. We have mothers grieving and grandparents and brothers and sisters and siblings who are having to bury their loved ones because of legislation that is not valuing people's lives.
We will not take our eye off the goings-on in your state. I welcome both of you back tomorrow to take me through the Republicans' continued escalation. Tennessee State Representatives Gloria Johnson and Justin Pearson, thank you so much for joining our coverage. And Eddie Blunt, thank you so much for being here today, my friend. Another break for us. We will be right back.